KJA Global Channel. The Political System and Me. Series 4. The Political System Across Every Sector of Society. Episode 49. Ethnic Nationalities and Minority Rights. Language, Culture, and Representation. A nation is not only a flag. A nation is not only a capital city. A nation is not only the language of the majority. A nation is the living home of many peoples, each carrying memory, language, faith, custom, ancestral land, and a way of understanding the world. If the political system treats diversity as a threat, the nation becomes a prison. If the political system treats diversity as dignity, the nation can become a family. Unity does not mean sameness. Unity built on forced sameness is not unity. It is domination. Assimilation enforced by policy. This is where our question begins. Can a person belong fully to the nation without being forced to abandon language, culture, identity, memory, or community? Minority rights are not charity. They are a constitutional necessity. When minorities are insecure, the nation is unstable. When minorities are silenced, resentment becomes history. When minorities are excluded from power, conflict becomes predictable. The political system decides whether identity is protected or punished, whether a mother tongue can be spoken without shame, whether culture can exist publicly without mockery, whether a people are represented as citizens or treated as suspects. This episode is about ethnic nationalities and minority rights. Language, culture, representation, equality, territorial arrangements, non-territorial protection, and remedy. Because federal democracy and just nationhood are impossible without belonging free from domination. The system reveal is language, culture, and representation safeguards. Minority rights are the architecture of belonging. Forced assimilation is a tool of control. In plain language, the hidden mechanism is language, culture, and representation safeguards. Language is not only communication. Language is identity. It carries memory, humor, law, prayer, knowledge, family stories, place names, and ways of seeing. When the political system suppresses a language, it does not merely regulate speech. It injures a people's dignity. Language rights may include education, services, courts, local administration, media, signage, and official communication. The design must be practical and fair, but no language should be erased through humiliation, exclusion, or neglect. Mother tongue education can strengthen early learning, family participation, and cultural continuity. It should also provide pathways to wider languages needed for national participation, higher education, and economic opportunity. The democratic goal is not isolation. It is multilingual belonging. Culture is often treated as festival decoration. But culture is also governance. It shapes family life, land use, dispute practices, community authority, education, memory, art, and moral obligation. Culture should never be used to justify violence, exclusion, or the denial of individual rights. But culture must also be protected from erasure by dominant institutions. Cultural rights include the freedom to preserve, develop, teach, celebrate, document, and transmit identity across generations. Public history matters. A nation must tell the truth about who it is. Textbooks, museums, monuments, archives, media, and national ceremonies should not describe one people as the nation and everyone else as an exception. Erased history creates unequal citizenship. Honest history creates the possibility of shared belonging. Representation is not only seats in parliament. Representation is the system of visibility and power. It asks who speaks, who decides, who controls budgets, who appoints officials, who designs education, who manages land and resources, and who can challenge harmful decisions. Token representation places a minority face inside a system without changing the system. Meaningful representation carries voice, information, authority, and accountability. Electoral design matters. Boundaries, voting systems, reserved seats, party rules, campaign access, and language access can determine whether minorities are visible or permanently outvoted. No single model fits every society, but affected communities must be able to influence decisions shaping their lives. Territorial arrangements may protect self-government where communities are geographically concentrated. Regional autonomy, local government, shared rule, and constitutional division of power can reduce domination. But territorial protection alone is not enough. Many minorities live outside one homeland or across several regions. Non-territorial arrangements may therefore protect language, culture, education, association, media, and representation regardless of residence. Federalism is not simply decentralization. It is dignity architecture, sharing power because dignity is shared. But federalism can reproduce domination inside regions. A regional majority can become a local oppressor if minority within minority safeguards are absent. That is why every level of government must remain bound by common rights, equality, due process, and independent review. Minority within minority safeguards protect smaller ethnic, linguistic, religious, caste, tribal, migrant, or other communities living inside a larger minority region. They may require local representation, language access, education rights, consultation, fair resource distribution, and complaint mechanisms. Citizenship must not be hierarchical. There cannot be first-class citizens and conditional citizens. Equal citizenship means identity, services, justice, education, work, movement, participation, and protection cannot depend on dominant group membership. Equality is not a slogan. It is procedures that work despite barriers of language, distance, cost, fear, and discrimination. Institutions must measure real outcomes. Who receives documents, reaches schools, enters public service, obtains land records, and secures remedy. Minority rights are also economic and territorial. Land, forests, water, minerals, infrastructure, and development projects often affect identity, livelihood, and political power at the same time. Resource decisions should not turn minority regions into extraction zones without fair participation, benefit, environmental protection, and remedy. Security must not become a permanent justification for repression. Real security protects civilians and rights. It does not criminalize identity, language, association, or lawful political demand. Collective punishment is incompatible with democratic citizenship. A political system may say, "Let us delay minority questions until the system stabilizes." But minority insecurity is often what destabilizes the system. Belonging must be built early, not promised after power has already been centralized. To understand ethnic nationalities and minority rights, follow the rights chain. Right or legitimate interest, law or constitutional rule, responsible institution, complaint or review, hearing and evidence, remedy enforcement. Right or legitimate interest asks what human claim is at stake. Language, culture, identity, equality, land, participation, education, representation, safety, or self-government. Law or constitutional rule asks where the right, duty, limit, and protection are defined. Responsible institution asks which parliament, ministry, court, regional government, local authority, school system, commission, or public body must act. Complaint or review asks where a person or community can challenge discrimination, exclusion, forced assimilation, land loss, unequal service, or denied representation. Hearing and evidence ask what records exist, who is heard, whether language access is available, and whether decision-makers are impartial. Remedy asks what can repair the harm. recognition, access, correction, representation, restitution, compensation, policy change, or lawful protection. Enforcement asks who makes the remedy real, and what happens if the responsible institution refuses. A broken outcome may begin far upstream. The visible harm may be language exclusion, cultural erasure, denied citizenship, lost land, token representation, or discriminatory service. But the deeper failure may be an unjust law, an unfunded institution, a hidden record, captured oversight, political patronage, unsafe participation, or a remedy that exists only on paper. The chain prevents us from reducing structural injustice to one official, one community, or one conflict. It identifies where law, capacity, evidence, representation, oversight, remedy, or enforcement stopped working. When citizens and professionals locate that break, criticism becomes more accurate and reform becomes more practical. For this episode, the principal mechanism is language, culture, and representation safeguards. The production graphic must make every link readable on a phone screen and label country-specific or proposed arrangements honestly. Under dictatorship, ethnic nationalities and minority rights are shaped primarily by concentrated command. Information is restricted, institutions answer upward, national identity is defined from the center, and challenge may carry personal risk. Assimilation may occur through force, schooling, administration, land policy, security practice, or control of public history. In a fragile democracy, formal rights may exist while patronage, unequal capacity, corruption, politicization, weak records, or selective enforcement makes protection inconsistent. Minority representatives may be present but powerless. Language rights may exist without budgets. Autonomy may exist without clear authority. In a functioning federal democracy, authority is constitutionally distributed, common rights remain enforceable, and courts, legislatures, regional governments, local bodies, commissions, media, civil society, and communities contest power. Elections or federal language do not substitute for functioning safeguards. The viewer should compare who decides, how authority was obtained, whether records are public, whether affected people participate, and whether independent remedies for domination or exclusion exist in practice. The constructive question is not merely what values we declare, but what institutions make minority rights reliable. The minimum guardrails are: 1. Equal citizenship and anti-discrimination law. Identity, services, justice, work, education, movement, property, and political participation must be protected without hierarchy. 2. Language, cultural, and participation rights. Communities need lawful space to use language, preserve culture, educate children, organize, communicate, and influence public decisions. 3. Shared institutions with meaningful representation. Legislatures, executives, courts, commissions, public services, and local bodies should provide real voice, authority, information, and accountability. 4. Minority within minority safeguards. Smaller communities inside autonomous regions or local majorities must retain equality, language access, participation, due process, and independent protection. 5. Independent remedies for domination or exclusion. Courts, commissions, ombuds institutions, and complaint bodies need accessibility, language support, evidence, independence, and power to enforce correction. These safeguards work as a system. Equality law without language access can remain empty. Cultural rights without representation can become symbolic. Autonomy without minority safeguards can reproduce domination. Participation without safety can expose communities. And remedy without enforcement does not repair harm. Global relevance. Across political labels, ask whose identity is recognized, whose language is usable, who controls land and institutions, who participates, and whether correction is real. Myanmar relevance. Apply the lesson without treating one authority, ethnic nationality, organization, armed actor, community, or proposed arrangement as the whole country. Separate existing law and institutions from interim systems, local practices, customary arrangements, political commitments, and aspirational federal designs. Here is the civic practice for this episode. See and ask. Ask whose language and culture are honored in public life near you, and whose are erased. Notice education, services, signage, media, representation, land, security, and complaint access. Verify. Examine language, culture, education, representation, land, equality, autonomy, public service access, and remedy provisions developed with affected communities. ACT. Create a dignity map using community-approved terminology. Record language access, cultural recognition, representation, services, land concerns, minority within minority protection, and available remedies. Do not convert the exercise into a public accusation. Review. Record whether you can name the responsible institution, the evidence, the safeguard or remedy, and one safe next step. Use only lawful, proportionate steps and protect identities where public exposure could create risk. The future of stability is not uniformity. The future of stability is belonging. This is not weakness. It is strength. When minorities are safe, respected, represented, and protected, the nation becomes more secure, united, intelligent, and resilient. I will not be forced to disappear in order to belong. I will not be humiliated in order to be accepted. I will not be excluded in order to be called a citizen. This nation will be a home without domination. That is minority rights. That is the dignity architecture of federal democracy. The principle to carry forward is this. Minority rights are the architecture of belonging. Forced assimilation is a tool of control. Ask yourself, what part of ethnic nationality and minority rights have I treated as normal, even though it should be visible, answerable, and correctable? Continue the playlist, use the worksheet, and keep the practice safe, truthful, and disciplined. The system shapes our lives. Our participation shapes the system. Subscribe, learn, participate, shape the future. KJA, knowledge justifies authority.